This is a special breaking news episode of People of Agency. I'm Aileen Day, and we're interrupting our regular programming because two stories just broke that show exactly how you destroy the most trusted institution in America. And I say this before all way too long voice memos that I send my friends with the latest gossip. I'm going to try to keep this as short and tight as possible, but your girl likes to gab, so let's get into it. Okay, so there were two stories. One was Amazon's $6 billion contract with the post office that expires in October 26. The breaking news there was Amazon might just walk away from that contract completely. And just days ago, the post office finalized a rule that means postmarks no longer prove when you've mailed something. These stories are connected, but let me take them one at a time. Okay, starting with Amazon. Amazon and the post office have been negotiating for almost a year. There's been no deal, and instead the post office announced that they're holding a reverse auction, opening their delivery network to competitive bidding. Amazon's spokesperson said they were surprised about this after months of good faith negotiations. But let's dive into that timeline a little more. Because in 2019, the post office delivered 1.5 billion Amazon packages. That was almost $4 billion in revenue and a $1.6 billion in profit. While that was happening, Amazon was building its own network. And by 2024, Amazon Logistics delivered 6.3 billion packages a year. Amazon now handles 28% of all U.S. parcel volume. In September 2025, Amazon announced a $4 billion investment to triple their rural delivery stations by the end of 2026. So yes, Amazon is expanding rural delivery. The post office, as we know, is legally required to deliver to every address in America, 6 days a week, whether it's profitable or not. Amazon isn't required to do that. They'll serve the routes that are now profitable, the ones they've spent a decade learning how to optimize, while the post office carried them to every address in America. The routes that still lose money, those will stay with the post office, except now the post office has lost $6 billion in revenue and still has to serve them. The post office carriers are already delivering to every rural address to deliver the mail. FedEx and UPS charge $15 plus for rural surcharges because they have to make special trips. That's the post office advantage. The route is already happening anyways. Those surcharges apply to almost 18,000 zip codes. And 97% of those zip codes are in rural areas. When Amazon walks away from the truly remote routes, and they will, those communities will lose access entirely. And the post office? They're about to lose $6 billion in annual revenue. The new Postmaster General told Rutgers they'll be out of cash in 12 to 24 months. We'll get more into that at the end of the season. But the post office lost $9 billion last year and is headed towards a crisis that will force either emergency congressional funding or massive service cuts. And as you know, the post office gets zero regular taxpayer funding. Zero. When first-class mail declined 80% since 1997, package delivery became a financial lifeline. The post office became dependent on Amazon. Even though Amazon was taking advantage of the post office, they've now become dependent on them. And now Amazon's leaving, or might be leaving. This could change.
Now the postmark change. First, what's a postmark? It's the stamp the Postal Service puts on your mail showing the date and location it entered the postal system. For more than 70 years, that date meant something specific, the day you dropped it off. And why does that matter? It's because postmarks are legal proof. If your ballot is postmarked by Election Day, your vote counts, even if it arrives later. If your tax return is postmarked by April 15th, you met the deadline. Bill payments, court filings, insurance claims, all of these rely on the postmark as proof of when you did your part. On December 24th, yes, Christmas Eve, the post office made official what's been happening under consolidation. The postmark no longer shows when you mailed something. It shows when your mail reaches a regional processing facility. So the post office is closing local processing centers and moving everything to about 60 regional hubs. If you drop your mailbox in a blue collection box on the street, it'll sit there until pickup, maybe the next morning or maybe even longer. Then it will travel to a regional facility. that's when it will get postmarked. If you're more than 50 miles from one of those facilities, that could be days after you mail it. There is one exception. If you hand your mail to a clerk at the post office counter and ask for a manual postmark, they'll stamp it that day, but most people don't know to do that. This affects 24,000 of the 33,700 post offices in the country, which is about 149 million Americans. 16 states plus DC accept mail ballots postmarked by Election Day, even if they arrive later than Election Day. Under this change, you could mail your ballot on Election Day and receive a postmark dated days later, so your vote doesn't count. In 2024, over 500,000 mail ballots were rejected nationwide. Over 100,000 of those were rejected for arriving too late. California's Attorney General warned voters in October, if you're more than 50 miles from a regional processing facility, don't mail your ballot on Election Day. Tax returns face the same problem. The IRS mailbox rule has been in law since 1954. If your return is postmarked by the deadline, it's timely. But if the postmark is dated after the deadline because of processing delays, you could face late penalties and interest. Bill payments, legal filings, Medicare appeals, prescription refills, all of these depend on postmarks. And who made this decision? Louis DeJoy launched the consolidation plan in 2021 as part of his Delivering for America reform. DeJoy was a Trump appointee, but he served under Biden too. The Postmaster General answers to the Board of Governors, not the president directly. And DeJoy resigned in March of 2025, but the consolidation is continuing. 6 states have nearly 100% of their zip codes at high risk for postmark delays: Wyoming, Vermont, South Dakota, West Virginia, Arkansas, and Mississippi. 10 states will have all their mail processed out of state. For more than 70 years, a postmark meant something. It was proof, and that's now gone.
So what connects these stories? Trust. The Postal Service has been the most trusted federal institution for decades. Higher trust than any other government agency. If you put a letter in the mail, it gets there. You mail something by the deadline, the postmark proves it. When you lose $6 billion in revenue that you depend on, you cut service. When postmarks stop meaning what they've meant for 70 years, people stop trusting the system. When the most trusted institution stops being trustworthy, everything else gets easier to destroy.
Since 2006, the post office has been financially strangled. The Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act required pre-funding retiree health benefits 75 years into the future. No other federal agency faces this. No private company faces this. It caused 87% of the post office losses between 2007 and 2016. During that crisis, the post office became dependent on Amazon's revenue, which gave Amazon leverage, which brings us to today. Here's what you can do. If you vote by mail in a state with postmark deadlines, mail your ballot a week early. Request a manual postmark at the counter if you must mail close to Election Day. The post office is holding a competitive auction for last-mile delivery access starting in 2026. If they lose Amazon without replacing that revenue, service cuts are coming.
The Postal Service financial crisis was manufactured. The service cuts are choices. Letting corporations use public infrastructure to build private empires, then walk away when it's convenient, walking away when you've made that public service reliant on you, that's a choice. And destroying trust in institutions is how you make people believe public services can't work.
The Postal Service was created to bind the country together. Communication for everyone, everywhere, regardless of profit. That's the contested space. And right now, it's not being contested for the people. I'm Maya.
I'm Aileen, and this is People of Agency. We're back on Monday with a new episode, and we're talking about one of my favorite things, Mr. Zip.